Hi guys, welcome back and hello if you are new. So 3 years after Damnum was released, Allegeaeon return not just themselves, but with Ezra Hayes, their former vocalist, at the helm on their 7th record, the Ossuary Lens. So, if you're not familiar with Allegeaeon, they are a band that for me have been kind of very much at that forefront of this sort of new wave of American tech death, I guess. I first discovered this band on Form Shifter back in 2012, I think it was. And I remember kind of thinking, I've not really heard anything like it. They're characterized by a really high level of technicality, and they have a fantastic melodic idea, which kind of leans into a bit of neoclassical at times, but they're also characterized by flamenco style guitar. And over the years, the band have kind of started to incorporate more symphonic elements, but also more progressive metal elements. And this record is the first to feature their previous singer, who I think the last album he was on was Elements of the Infinite. So it's quite a big deal. So with this album, there isn't specifically kind of a concept in mind, but it looks at the different kind of perspectives of death, shall we say. There are some kind of Allegeaeon familiarities in the form of science. They kind of talk about science quite a lot with this record. So you've got chaos theory and dark matter dynamics that kind of, keep that up. But yeah, it's quite an interesting and quite sort of personal look, I think, into some of the struggles that the members have had, or, things like that in terms of lyrics. This is potentially, I would say, Allegeaeon's shortest record, clocking in at 45 minutes. But with that in mind, it means that it's also one of their leanest. I think, the songwriting is incredibly dynamic. And whilst I really like, Apoptosis is probably my favourite Allegeaeon record, there can be times when I think, they had sort of extra tracks, which maybe sort of bloated the album slightly. But here, it's all very lean. I definitely also think that there's more playing with the idea of light and dark on this record. Dark matter dynamics, as you can imagine, is a bit more of a dramatic sort of track, really. And we've got Dies Irae, which brings more of a black metal element to the band, and really enhances that sort of cinematic idea. Another key ingredient for the Ossuary Lens is melody, and the chorus melody of Driftwood is a great example of that. I think that whether or not this sort of happened knowingly, but maybe some of the Nuclear Power Trio stuff has kind of trickled down a little bit, because the melodies on that record were really, really strong and hit nice and quick. And I feel like they do that exactly here with Allegeaeon. And whilst the chorus of Driftwood is great, I think maybe one of my favourite hooks that the band have ever written is Wake Circling Above. That chorus is just massive. But as ever, you can expect Technicality to come out in spades, and we've got tracks like The Swarm, which I think is super, super fast, and then Dies Irae has that signature, I call it like the Allegeaeon bounce, which is great. I love that. But then the flamenco style of dark matter dynamics comes back in. It's also in Refraction to kick the record off, and Imperial before we kind of get blasted by neo mellow death kind of thing. So Ezra has come back and he does really fit like a glove. I think his vocal style is a little bit more raspy than Riley, but also what was a really nice surprise is some of the clean vocals that he's got on display here. He's absolutely nailing, the super fast delivery that Allegeaeon are known for, but the surprise was that Driftwood, Wake Circling Above kind of especially the key change that he hits. I thought that was really cool. That song in general is so well put together. You know, the way that the guitar solo comes out and goes straight into the chorus. It's a really, really brilliant song. And it has to be said, you know, these are Allegeaon records. There's going to be amazing solos, and Carried by Delusion and Driftwood have two of my favorite on the album for sure. Carried by Delusion especially, I think, really kind of sets that scene with the melody nice and early. And that could be said for a lot of the tracks actually on here. So whilst this isn't necessarily rewriting the Tech Death book, it's putting a solid paragraph in there, let's just say. And I think if you're a fan of Allegeaon, you'll find loads of, you know, the usual stuff to love. But also if you thought maybe they were a little bit bloated previously, this I think is going to be really, really great. And will, I think, bring people in a little bit more because of the shorter runtime. So for that reason, I'm going to give this record an 8 out of 10. Really, really solid record. Some amazing tracks on here and highly recommend. So thank you ever so much for checking this album review out. It'd be great if you could hit that like and subscribe if you did enjoy this album review. And let me know what you think of the new Allegeaon album, The Ossuary Lens. And I'll see you guys very, very soon for another album review.